You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Back home, gonna sleep in my own bed tonight, so I'm always happy about that. I'm really happy that Thursday night game is done and past us because that thing was a bore to watch.
Oh, man.
Although I mean, was it Campbell, right? Walking off the field, like just saying, "No, I don't want anymore." Like,
Right.
holy smokes! Like that was to be a fly on the wall in that locker room and to hear what those players said and what discussions were or maybe weren't had would be very intriguing. But that's super unfortunate. I feel I'm not a Niners fan by any means. I'm not a Niners apologist. I feel sorry for the team that you have a teammate who does that to you. Like that's just, you want to talk about golden rule, right? Baseball has all the unwritten rules. The golden rule, that's the golden rule of any team sport. Like you signed up to be a part of this team and to do what you needed to help that team in any way you could, and to just kind of wipe your hands of it and say, all right, c'est la vie. Mind blowing.
Right.
Absolutely mind blowing. So that was super unfortunate. But outside of that, the only thing anybody missed was field goals. Big fat 0 from Cooper Kupp. Kyron got to 100 yards. That was good. Garendo kind of did his part, right? He was kind of right at projected totals. So he got you there. Puka had a good game. Just no touchdowns for anybody. Not for Brock, not for Stafford, not for Puka, not for Debo, nobody. No touchdowns. So I'm really hoping that this Sunday's a little bit more high octane. So that way we can enjoy some fantasy football scores.
Yes, absolutely. So, it was interesting, right? Like you mentioned the fly on the wall of that locker room. Yeah, I don't know as vocal as several of the as vocal as several folks were in the media about the situation. I don't know how much more of that was left unsaid that wasn't then brought to the media's attention, because there was a lot of that, right? And
I kept waiting for the sleeper post saying the Niners have released him.
You may have missed it. I thought I saw that earlier today.
Oh, did it come out? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I thought I saw
it come when I was in the air traveling home, and then I didn't see it.
Yeah, I thought I saw a post earlier today that it was that had happened, but I very well could have misread that. So
you quit in the middle of a game? Like, what's your game check look like? Do you get half because you played the first half?
I don't know. That I do not know. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of things reported, from major news sources, NFL.com, CBS Sports, saying that the Niners are moving on. So,
so it must have happened when I was in the air. I just didn't get it pushed through my phone.
So I was like, I thought I saw that come through kind of middle of around noon, early afternoon time there. So, it certainly seems as though they've decided to end that. Speaking of teams and players parting ways, the Dolphins and OBJ are deciding to part ways again, where he can go and apparently be more of a focal point. At this point in his career, I just don't know that that's going to happen. This is now how many seasons where that's just not the case any longer. Like
he's not that guy anymore. He's just not. Too many injuries. He's lost a step. His routes aren't as crisp. His hands don't seem to be as good. Like injuries took their toll, right? He was a highlight reel for 2.5 seasons, and then a bad string of really unfortunate injuries. And now he could be a piece if he was willing to commit himself to that for sure, but he's no longer the guy anywhere.
So, yeah, yeah, certainly very interesting there. Yeah, I was trying to think of some of the other things that kind of came out there. By the way, just for the home league, if we can figure out a way that like receivers, running backs, if they could also get points for blocking, um, like I'd be a fan of that rule implementation is there as well. And that would put guys like Puka and Cooper Cup just over the top. So, like
That's right.
that was the interesting thing, right? Like watching the game last night, like really just watching how those Rams receivers were really getting in there, and they seemed like they were more enthusiastic about blocking than they were about getting out and being able to run around and catch a ball. Like they were they'd catch the ball, they do they do the little deal, but if they picked up that big block that freed Kyron running, like they were ecstatic about that. So that's interesting to see, right? Especially out of a position where you don't see that as much, or see guys super enthusiastic to do that part of the role.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, anyway, any kind of other news, notes, anything like that we want to hit up before we start diving into some questions, some comments, the chat here?
Not NFL related. I mean, I'm super excited for this playoff scenario to kind of kick off this weekend and see what that looks like. But yeah, that's college. So NFL related, not so much.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Ingram. He's going on IR, torn labrum, I believe. He's going to be out the rest of the season. So if you have Evan Ingram in your lineups, get him out. He is going to be on IR probably Saturday. Um, but he's already listed as out. And Kenneth Walker has been changed to doubtful, I believe. So fire up Zach Charbonnet for one more week. Derek, that might be the thing that saves me.
Yeah, maybe. That very well
Like
could be.
from Puka, but maybe I can get Charbonnet to show up one more week for me. I'd be pretty ecstatic about that.
Yes, I would be. Yeah, Kenneth Walker listed as doubtful. It was one of those that if my opponent who has Kenneth Walker on his team was having to play him and didn't already have the pivot in there and all of that, I would be more ecstatic, about my hopes in there. But we'll see. So there's a whole lot of football left to be played, and there's for those that were starting people in a lot of the Thursday night games, and really relied on some of that. Hopefully Sunday breaks better for you. That's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
at.
Got some ground to make up, especially in playoffs, right? So you got to start thinking maybe a little bit more upside now if you're playing someone who didn't have anybody on the Thursday night game,
Right.
and you were stuck with a low score from Debo or a 0 from Cooper Cup. Maybe you had Brock Purdy, or Matt Stafford going, like, any one of those guys, Kittle even, right? Like you might upside might be your best friend now to try and regain the momentum.
Right. My apologies to the person that sent the message through the chats last night and asking who to start, and Purdy was the answer that was given. So my apologies on that one. That game did not plan out how I was anticipating. So, alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and hit up some of these questions, comments, concerns. Binkin over on YouTube saying, my guys, sup fellas? Not much, Binkin. You know how we doing it. We're it's old Friday night fantasy football huddle.
That's right.
All righty. And Mario saying, good evening, fellas. Any take on whether Rodgers stays or leaves the Jets?
So we were talking about that. It might have been off air Tuesday with
Yeah,
Alex, right? We were kind
I
of
think
taking that,
so.
and I think we were kind of 2-1, right? Two of us thought he was leaving. One thought he was staying. Am I remembering that correctly, or was I on the island thinking he's gone?
I don't know that he's back.
Yeah.
Like
So I just for why, like they've gone and tried as much as they can. They're gonna have a new head coach in. You want him to kind of have his guy. Rodgers is not going to be around very long, even if he stays. So you don't really want Aaron Rodgers like influencing the coaching decision necessarily, because that's not even your medium term answer, right? That is your short term answer. So, if you're the Jets, why wouldn't you, new head coach, bring in, his guys and see how that goes? Like, I just don't see how Rodgers is going to fit into this. So at the moment, I'm going to say he's not coming back, Mario.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have a hard time believing that there's a lot of want to bring to bring him back if you're the Jets, right? Like this season was kind of a disaster, right? And like the
Watch him go to the Raiders and get the Raiders to trade Devontae Adams back.
that would be hilarious. It seems like something that very well could happen, but yeah, I don't know that there's any want to on the Jets side to bring him back, right? Like,
So here's something for you, and
mhm.
excuse my rabbit hole. We got a minute though. I was in Texas this week, right? Surrounded by a bunch of Cowboys fans. And we were, just jaw jacking at the end of the night. And um, one of them mentioned that he would rather have Aaron Rodgers than Dak Prescott. And I about fell out of my chair.
Yeah.
Like, I am quickly learning how much disdain people who are Cowboys fans have for Dak Prescott. And I can't wrap my head around it.
No.
I just can't. Like, I'm trying to talk to him, like, no. If you're gonna live down here, like, you can't be saying that, and just random things, right? And I'm just right my head around, like, guys, like, you guys had Romo, like, oh yeah, we love Romo. I was like, really? Did you love him when he blinked and couldn't catch the snap on an extra point? Well, that was just one play. I'm like, guys, Dak has had 2 MVP caliber seasons for you. One was shortened by injury, that he was on a historic pace. And the other one, he got beat out because he didn't rush for 800 yards like Lamar did. Like, that's it.
Right.
And they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. I just laughed. I was like, okay.
By the way, the Aaron Rodgers on the Cowboys, I don't think that one plays out well at all.
No, I don't think
Like that,
so either. It was just them. We were talking about the Jets and Rodgers, and it just came
yeah.
up. I was like, y'all are crazy.
Right. Outside looking in, I just don't see the personalities at play there meshing well from several different aspects there. But yeah, I mean, this at this point, right? If you're the Jets, you had Aaron Rodgers coming into the season, supposed to be healthy. They brought in all of these, they supposedly on paper had a very good looking offense. There should have been high octane, high powered to it. They started off as one of the best defenses in the league. They decided to part ways with kind of the mastermind of their defensive unit, and that very quickly fell apart. And now they're sitting here at the top 10 pick going into it, and not again, what is it? 2010 was the last time that they made the playoffs. Rex Ryan was still the head coach at that point. Like
Sexy Rexy.
that's how long it's been since the Jets have been there. So I don't know that there's any reason that that they would want to bring him back at that point. So, any
good.
other thoughts on this one?
Nah, young blood. Bring it in.
All righty, Tyler. I see the comment. About the about Campbell and all of that. YouTube and some of these programs don't like some of the words in there, so I'm not going to flash it. But there were a lot of players going on with the Niners that certainly have other personal issues going on and injuries going on and all of those types of things. And you're right, they're certainly ended up finishing the game and playing through the season and doing things for the organization. I'll agree with you. Any other thoughts on that?
No.
Okay.
Fair weather players, right? they all managed to find ways to get on the field and suck it up when they were winning games. And now that they're struggling and going through some adversity, you're seeing some true character come out.
Alrighty. So and then Tyler's saying that or a kick return, haha. Yeah. So the talking about points for the fantasy leagues, right? Like kick returns, that'd be a kind of a fun one to implement too, like getting kick return yards, punt return yards.
And you can. Most of the leagues have a base scoring system for return yardage. You could do something like that. It makes certain guys interesting. Like some guys, the problem with it is it can really, really wonk with some things. And unintentionally, right? Because Achan will return kicks from time to time. He's already, a top 8 running back. Like he's not really more valuable than Derrick Henry or Saquon, I would say. So to give him return yards on top of it and put him in that stratosphere, I think is always interesting. So you just have to play with it a little bit. That's the hard part about scoring is you want points for some of these things, but until you play a full season with those scoring rules in place,
Yeah,
you don't truly know what it's doing. Like we've experimented with tons of things in the home league. Return yards has never been one of them, in large part because of that. We have a ton of high scoring crazy rules, but I don't know. I don't know that I could get behind a kick return specialist being a top 15 play just because he's a kick return specialist.
right. That's kind of one of the things that we've managed to kind of go through is that a touchdown doesn't necessarily save the day in the home league, right? Like it can contribute to it, things like that, but it's gone through to the point where it's, if a guy goes, 2 for 20 and a touchdown, like it's not one of those that it's going to set him apart and be, have a top 10 type of finish in there, like we've seen in some of these other type of deals. So that's kind of nice about it. And I think you're right with some of the kick return things that may have some unintended consequences there for sure. So
The defenses sure did. When we tweaked all the defenses scoring the first time,
oh man,
we had
yeah.
no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And neither did the website. Like they weren't even close. You start talking about projections just to kind of have an idea.
Right.
And it couldn't even keep up.
Well, the projections now are still all over the place, even with that. So it is kind of crazy. So alrighty. Tyler over on YouTube asking to start Reed, Elijah Moore, or Keon Coleman.
Mm.
I'm
not going to tell you Jaden Reed. Like I'm so frustrated with Jaden Reed right now that he might be the right answer, but I'm not going to tell you that.
That's fair.
Elijah Moore going up against Kansas City. I don't know that I necessarily love that either. Like that's a little bit better. Like that. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Figuring that they're just going to have to chuck it all around the yard. And then Keon coming back from injury against Detroit.
I'm going to lean on Jaden Reed at this point.
Oh, God.
I know it doesn't feel pretty, but I have him slightly ahead of Elijah Moore. I mean, I projecting these guys out, I've got them probably within about a half point of each other. Keon Coleman, anytime guys are coming back, I want to kind of see it on the field before I buy into that. More so, right? Like that Buffalo Detroit matchup, like that Detroit defense is has got some grit to them as they through using their own vernacular there, right? Like I don't know that I want to be facing that one down. So it's Reed by a hair for me over Elijah Moore.
I'm not allowed to abstain. Given this situation, I would tell you it's Jaden Reed. by a hair again. However, if you wanted to pivot to Elijah Moore, I would fully support that decision.
Right. And then Tyler saying that Aaron Rodgers can't have a winning record on a handpicked team.
That's like LeBron with the Lakers, and then he goes on personal leave.
So, yep. So, I don't know. It's I somebody and I forget who said it, but if I remember the name, I would give him credit because it was a really kind of just good thought out there that basically Tom Brady ruined how we should think about quarterbacks as they begin to age out, right? Like that was the exception, not what we should kind of be used to seeing as guys start nearing 40. There's one guy that was able to sustain that kind of level there. Everybody
Don't
else,
let Manning Super Bowl fool you. He was throwing ducks, and that defense carried him.
yeah,
He was just smart enough to check into the right run play.
right. So there was a lot of that, and that's as we see these quarterbacks start getting closer to that 36, 37, 38, like things start breaking down, right? Like the legs just aren't there, the arm strength starts kind of going, right? Like, well, you still may be able to process things like that. The plays just don't quite happen like they used to.
You don't get the drive, right?
Right.
And not the drive as in want to. You don't get the drive on the ball.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing. Rodgers, it doesn't look like he has quite as much zip because he's never been a leg thrower, right? If you look at Aaron Rodgers' mechanics, the beauty with Rodgers for years was that wrist flick, right? Everybody talked about, oh, look at the wrist flick. He just tosses it out there and the ball sails 40 yards. It's not quite as mesmerizing. And I think part of the things that has helped Matt Stafford a little bit is he still drives with his legs. Now, Rodgers is still older, but we want to talk about games played and everything else. Matt Stafford's played just as many games, if not more than Aaron Rodgers, and he still has that drive through his hips and his legs, and so he keeps some zip on the ball.
Yeah. I would agree, right? Like it's interesting, right? Because you used to kind of watch that thing, and it was like interesting you bring up the mechanics because it was almost like when you watch him do it, it was almost like he was throwing like dart players. Like when you sit there and see it, like the wrist flick, the follow through, like all of that. Like so it was almost like you see these guys when they throw the darts, like that was almost what it kind of reminded me of when seeing that, and certainly doesn't looks like that may have lost a little bit of zip for sure there. So, alrighty. Sergio over on YouTube saying that need a tight end and they have Mark Andrews, Kate Otten, pick or Smart pick one.
I like Andrews here going against the Giants, but I'm afraid that Baltimore is going to get out in front of this one and kind of salt it away.
Right.
Hutton against the Chargers is a tough matchup. I think I'd rather lean Andrews. Don't go Stone Smart. Yes, yes, he had a good half. Like I want to see that. That dude had more catches in a half of football than he had his entire career.
Yes.
And I'm not saying they won't go back to him because they had been using Will Dissly a pretty good amount there in LA. So I'm not saying that he has no chance, but I think I'm going to lean Andrews here and play on the fact that the Giants aren't a very good defense against the tight end.
Yeah. I like that call, and I'll co-sign there as well. Tyler over on YouTube saying the thing is Tom Brady didn't force two coaches out of their jobs. Hopefully that worded that properly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he didn't. You're right. I mean, Brady and Belichick were together for seemingly forever. Brady made the decision to remove himself from that situation, went down to Tampa, and then him and Todd Bowles.
Bruce Arians was when they won.
Bruce, yes. Sorry. Yep, Bruce and then Todd, right? Was his last year. Yeah, Bruce retired, so it wasn't even him. So yeah, Brady didn't do that. No, and he wouldn't. That's not his. That's not his MO. He is a fiery competitor. But any type of constructive criticism or criticism at all was held behind closed doors in the meeting room, in the locker room, and it never got out. Aaron, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether he's speaking the truth or it's just his version of the truth, um, has a less than appealing habit of putting it out there on the national stage, and it rubs people the wrong way because we're a soft nation and people don't like criticism.
So, and you're right, because yeah, that was the thing too with Brady. And yeah, interestingly enough, right? Like, I don't know if you saw that one when Brady was on the air. It looked like they actually had, like he was talking about, that kind of that free agency. Sounded like he might have been going to the Bears type of thing, and yeah, then ended up going to Tampa Bay and all of that. But yeah, that was definitely one of those. Certainly picked a coach, picked a organization where yeah, he was going into a situation where yeah, certainly people had the same drive to try and win a championship, because that was one of the things that had eluded Bruce at that point, was that championship, even though he'd had all of these monstrous offenses and all of that, and had come close a couple of times. Just that particular one had eluded. So yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those that right. And again, Tom and that the coaches that he worked with, you seemed you kind of saw what how that relationship can either drive a organization forward, or on the reverse of that, if the coach and the players aren't aligned, it sets the organization back, and people don't tend to stick around very long in those situations, for sure. So that's a good point there, Tyler. So, but yeah, and if guys, if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, let's go ahead and throw those in the chat. Let's go ahead and get chatting about those and talking about those. But yeah, I mean, one of the other things too, right? We're hoping for some good high scoring affairs this Sunday. Is there any games, any matchups that you're particularly kind of looking forward to or have an eyeball on that could have some fantasy gold to it?
I'm really interested to watch Pittsburgh and Philly,
Yeah.
like just as a game. I'm super excited to watch that one. Detroit and Buffalo, right? I mean, those are the two headline games that I am super excited to watch. Everything outside of that, honestly, just like Seattle, Green Bay, you could argue. Like I'd allow that argument. Anything outside of that, and I'm not that blown away by it. Like realistically, for the playoffs, they're in different conferences, but the Chargers and Tampa Bay are both playoff teams right now, so that should be a good game. But it doesn't have that appeal for some reason. Like so, I'm not overly loving that one. Maybe Chicago, Minnesota, maybe, but Chicago's not in the race. Like, so it's just
Right.
Minnesota trying to hold on. Like, they just need to get out with a win. So I don't feel like this week's slate is that good top to bottom. Like, you have a couple really strong matchups up top, and then the rest are like they're just cross conference matchups, right? I mean, Tampa, yeah, Cleveland and Kansas City, big deal. Baltimore and the Giants, who cares? Tennessee and Cincinnati. Cincinnati technically has an outside shot of making the playoffs, right? If the Broncos were to kind of stumble along here and Cincinnati, wins out, there's an opportunity there. So okay. Vegas and Atlanta doesn't really do it for me. It should have been the Rams and the Niners, right? On paper, that should have been a good game, even with the Niners having a lesser season than what they'd like, and that whether it was weather or game script or whatever. I mean that turned into kind of a bore fest. But
Mhm.
I do think that Buffalo and Detroit is probably my number one, and Pittsburgh Philly is probably my number two. For fantasy purposes, the Houston Miami game. right? Just for fantasy purposes. See what Stroud and Nico and Joe Mixon can do against Achane, Tyreek, and Tua. Like, I think that could put some points up on the board for fantasy managers. So that one has promise to it. And we'll see what version of the Cowboys show up. CeeDee Lamb should be able to have a decent game against Carolina. So that should help fantasy managers. Denver has been putting up a lot of points here lately. So again, for fantasy purposes, Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, seeing if Anthony Richardson, how he fares against this Broncos defense, who's been pretty on top of things here lately. So meh, kind of. I mean, but really,
Yeah.
it's 2 or 3 at the top, and other than that, the slate's kind of blah. Like, I'm definitely gonna be finding some things to do on Sunday with a game just in the background. I'm not gonna be glued to my television
Right.
unless it's one of the top 3 games.
I mean, the barn burner between the Jets and the Jaguars, shoot. Whoo-wee.
Yeah, the only reason that game's gonna get ratings is because they're gonna air it in New York.
Fair enough. So,
I mean, you take the Jets and you put them in, Portland, Oregon, or Boise, Idaho, and the Jets and Jaguars is about as boring as it's gonna get.
yes. Tyler saying that they're looking forward to the Detroit versus Buffalo. It's a great offense in Detroit versus a great defense in Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo's been putting up offense, left and right too. Detroit's defense been pretty
Josh
good.
Allen has been putting up offense left and right. I don't even know if it's Buffalo, but Josh Allen has just been historically rewriting how we look at record books the last couple weeks, and
yeah,
dude's on a tear. Like, he's on a mission right now. So I appreciate the drive. It makes it really fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, those are two just very well-rounded teams at this point. So I like it. But you know what? That kind of brings up Jordan chiming in saying that Josh Allen for MVP. So certainly kind of on that pace, that's for sure. All right, here's a question that I've been wrestling with for a little bit, and I'll get your thoughts on it. I got to pick two to start. James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Rico Dwaddle.
I think I'm gonna go Rico and James Cook.
Okay. That's kind of
And
where
I like James Cook because of the passing work. Like, I think he's gonna get some check downs. See if they can take just a little bit of pressure off of Detroit's front four. They're banged up a little bit, but they're still really, again, ferocious, right? The word that they used. So I think Cook could see some check down work. And if he's able to sneak away with, 4 grabs on top of his normal rushing work, I think that makes a really, really good number 2. Waddle, they're feeding him the ball a lot lately, and they need to. Cooper Rush is your quarterback. Carolina's not very good against the run again, so I would I'd say why the heck not? I'd throw Dwaddle and Cook in there, I think.
Okay. And that's kind of where I keep leaning and keep coming back to. I just the James Cook kind of burned me last week, so that's why I'm really wrestling with this one. But when looking at it as well, right? The Patriots, the Cardinals, like that's a more favorable matchup than going up against Detroit. But so
I just get scared because if Stevenson in a half
There-
PPR, if Stevenson's not getting a touchdown, I don't think he gets there.
That's fair. That's
right.
fair.
And so that's kind of how we always, base our stuff off of. So in half point PPR, I think James Cook has a higher likelihood of getting you to, 13, 14 points than Stevenson does, where you have to get a touchdown to get there.
Okay. All right. I like it. Well, and I appreciate everybody kind of chiming in there too. Jordan in the chat saying that they'd also go with Cook and Dwaddle. So appreciate it. Sometimes the guys answer the questions, have questions too that they want to bounce off. So I appreciate everybody chiming in on this one. Tyler over on YouTube saying funny that some fantasy analysts finally did not mention Tank Dell. That's respect. Finally, someone that tells the truth that Tank Dell isn't worth it. I mean, it's been kind of rough sledding out there for.
I think we've mentioned his name like 5 times through 15 weeks.
Yeah,
And that's between the Tuesday and the Friday shows. So
Yeah.
so 30 shows, and this might be the 6th time that we've mentioned his name. Like no,
Yeah.
he had his little flash in the pan. It is Nico Collins' show. Stephon Diggs absolutely had a role until he went down, and Tank hadn't been able to recover any of the magic that he had last year for whatever reason. I'm not sure why that is, honestly.
Right.
But he has not been able to slide back into that number 2 role and be nearly as successful as he was last year for Houston.
Well, I think some of it has to do with the fact that the emergence of Joe Mixon in that offense, right? Like, I think Joe Mixon plays a huge role in the in what we're seeing CJ Stroud not produce for fantasy as well, right? Like last year, if Houston was going to do anything on offense, it was because CJ Stroud was going to have to drop back and throw for 300 plus and multiple touchdowns. Now it's, they can win, they can be competitive, they can do all of these things with a much more back. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And with that and your quarterback not dropping back and just having to rocket fire constantly down the field, it becomes more targeted on who's getting that, and that's going to be Nico. So Tyler's saying that respect on that one as well. Wesley over on Twitch saying or asking if it's all right if they ask a start sit question for the flex.
Oh yes, that's what we're here for.
Yep, absolutely, Wesley. Let's go ahead and get that one in there. Oh, and I see it's already in the chat here. So Wesley over on Twitch asking flex spot Jordan Addison, T. Higgins, or Jonathan Taylor. They are currently leaning towards Addison. So Wesley, we just kind of a first time I'm seeing you in the chat in the show. Welcome in. Just to kind of give the disclaimer there a little bit. We base the answers off of a half point PPR. If it's a different type of format, let us know that, and we're basing that off of a half point. But that all of that being said, are you leaning Addison? You leaning Higgins? You leaning Jonathan Taylor?
I'm leading Higgins first and then Addison. And the two are close. Like I'm not it has to be Higgins necessarily. I like that matchup against Tennessee a bit more. Again, the Bears back end is good. That's where their strength has been, like in secondary coverage. They handed Justin Jefferson his worst week of the regular season this year. What was it, 3 weeks ago in week 12 when they played, something like that. Now they might pivot that towards Addison because that's where they got burned. So you could see them be a little bit more balanced instead of just covering Jefferson. But it did kind of work for him, right? The Vikings got out to a lead, and then the Bears were able to kind of chip their way back because Jefferson wasn't getting the ball. So maybe you see something similar. I'd be surprised if you saw the exact same game plan. These guys are all too smart for that. But for me, it's T. Higgins because at the end of the day, you know that Joe Burrow is going to drop back 40 times, right? He may only have 36 pass attempts, but he's dropping back at least 40 times. So I'm going to lean Higgins and then Addison. I don't want anything with Jonathan Taylor. Like this is not working. Whatever Indianapolis is doing and trying to get all this squared away and get all their playmakers together and on the field and clicking on the same page, it is not working. Right. They're riddled with injuries on the offensive line. That is a big part of the problem for JT. But he has not been able to get you there all season long, and I'm not going to bank on him getting there against a pretty solid run defense from the Denver Broncos on the road in the first round of the playoffs.
Right. I'm right there with you. I am leaning the T. Higgins side as well. I think T. Higgins has the ability to get into wide receiver 1 territory. This week, I think Jordan Addison's more of a back end wide receiver 2. And so if I can put a guy that I'm kind of projecting to be up there in the wide receiver 1 range, in a flex spot, I am all for that one. Wesley saying that it is a full point PPR. Does that change anything for you?
it kind of makes me like Higgins even more because Addison's been hitting a bunch of big plays. That's what's been helpful. So Higgins is doing his. He's 5-6 balls. Addison's been able to do some of his damage on just 3 catches, but he's getting 127 yards and a touchdown, or 4 catches, something like that. So I think it still puts it in that same range. I don't want Taylor. He's absolutely the last one on this list that I would want to play. I lean Higgins. If you want to go Addison, I'm not going to fight you on it, honestly, man. I think it's pretty stinking close. For some reason, I have an affinity for T. Higgins. Like, when he's on the field, I really like to play him.
Yeah. And I'm right there with you. I lean on the T. Higgins side. Wesley, if you've got a strong feeling saying that Addison's your guy, I'm kind of right there. Going to echo what Kevin just said, that if you got a strong feeling, play your dude at that point. Personally, I'd probably lean the Higgins route there. But absolutely a really good question. And again, guys, if you have questions, comments, let's go ahead and throw those in the chat. Let's go ahead and chat about those, and we'll keep rocking and rolling here. I'm not real sure how to pronounce that one, but I do see Kev in that one. So we're going to go with Kev over on YouTube. Yo, guys, I'm struggling with Baker this week. Do I pivot to Winston, Stroud, Rodgers? I would not go with Rodgers. Also, they have A.J. Brown or Drake London. So first question, QB, Baker, Winston, Stroud, or Rodgers?
Crazy as it seems, I'm going to tell you Winston. Like, the ground game has not been working for Cleveland. And Kansas City has a propensity to just play to the level of their competition week in and week out, and then just try and find some magical way to win. So we're not gambling on the game, but if we're going to say that Kansas City is going to play to the level of Cleveland, then I think that's JMO. Like, let's see what he can do. His weapons are all healthy here at the moment. We expect to have Tillman back. The run game hasn't been extremely strong, so I think Nick Chubb's going to be pretty quiet. And so they're going to be leaning on Jameis's arm. So I think you're going to see some good and bad Jameis. You're going to have to deal with that a little bit, but ultimately, he's just fun to root for too. Like, I think I like Jameis, and I just like rooting for the guy. After Jameis, I'd go Stroud.
Okay.
And then Baker, and then
okay.
Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers is the far and away last guy in this order for me. Between the rest of the three, Stroud, Winston, and Mayfield, honestly, I think this is a race to about 16 points when it comes to it. Like, I think that's where we're going to see. And I think all of these guys, those 3 guys, are going to be probably pretty close to that. Stroud, Winston certainly have the better matchup than what Baker does. So Baker's going to be kind of my 3rd guy in the list there. I do really like, what you said about Winston and the KC matchup, because that very well could turn into Kansas or Cleveland have to just drop back and Jameis having to rocket the ball, 35 times, 40 times in that game. And I'm
not convinced that. Yeah, and again, the way Judy's been playing, he's kind of been on fire, so I think that's helpful. Getting Tillman back is helpful. You have Elijah Moore. And again, we just saw on Monday Night Football, the Browns could put up some points, right? Like, they've been putting up points pretty consistently in the mid to high 20s since JMO took over. Obviously, the massive explosion against Denver might be the anomaly, but Denver's defense, in large part, statistically at least, is better than Kansas City's.
Right.
I'm gonna give JMO the benefit of the doubt here. If you can find a way to get to 260 and 2, a third if you're really lucky, you couldn't ask for more than that. I don't think you're going to get the possibility of a 3rd touchdown out of any of the other guys this week.
Right. And CJ Stroud is one that's right. Like, you would like to think that matchup would be, would be really nice to, against Miami, Houston. Like, you would think that these would be 2 teams that would potentially get into a higher scoring affair. Like, all of these things. I don't know that that's going to be the case there. And,
See a lot of Joe Mixon and Achane in that game.
that's what I'm leaning towards as well. And, when you first see that on paper, you think that might be a Tua Stroud duel type of thing going on. I think that you're right. I think it's going to lean more into the run game. And I do see very big games for both Achane and Mixon. But Stroud is a guy that has just been kind of right there around QB 20 all season. And I don't want to risk my fantasy playoffs on that, right? Like, could he blow up? Sure. He certainly has that potential, but Baker's the guy that's been consistent for you all season long. So I get that one. Jameis is the guy that I think provides the highest ceiling in this case. And I think he and Baker, when it's all said and done, are probably pretty close. But I think kind of took a long way to say I think I'm right there with you on how I'd order that with Winston, Stroud, Baker, Rodgers. So, alrighty. Tyler saying that couldn't have said it better himself, even with Collins out. He had like 6 targets in 2 weeks. That going back to the Tank Dell side of things. And then, I'm sorry, we missed the second part of this question. So Kev over on YouTube was asking AJ Brown or Drake London this week.
Brown, all the trauma, all the drama, all the things going on, and right now Kirk Cousins can't get the ball in the end zone. Right, like he is not on a good stretch here for the Falcons. I'm going to take the harder matchup. I'm going to take AJ Brown, and I think you could see him have a very strong week.
Right.
90 yards and a touchdown. I don't know that he gets to 100. Maybe if he breaks one, maybe. But I think you can see 90 yards, like 7 for 92 and a touch. Like, and I'll take that all day.
Right. Jordan would agree with you as well, saying that they kind of like AJ Brown this week. The squeaky wheel gets the grease on that one. So
yeah, Eagles downplayed that all week. You know they're putting a game plan in for him. Like, put this to bed. We don't need this BS right now. Getting ready to head into the playoffs as we're still trying to fend off Washington for the division. They don't need that drama.
No. So I would agree. It's AJ Brown, right? As much as that pains me to say, because I've got Drake London in enough places. I need a very big week there, but I'd be going AJ Brown as well. Wesley over on Twitch saying that luckily their opponent started Purdy this week. LOL. Thank you guys very much. Go Seahawks.
Go Hawks, huh?
Yeah.
Well, not everybody's perfect. I'm just playing with you, man. It's all good.
All righty. And then Kev also saying that they also have Nico to pair with Stroud, and Njoku's out, which kind of scares them with Winston and the weather. I might get those.
Problem is, Winston's the one guy you don't need to be scared of because he's still going to rip it.
Facts.
Like, he is auditioning for a starting quarterback job. He does not give a F right now. Like, he wants to support and rally his team. And right now, they're all playing their butts off for JMO. So I don't think you need to be worried about it. Njoku sucks. Yeah, that one stings a little bit. He's got enough receivers that are healthy right now, especially if Tillman, if he gets off that questionable tag and he's playing, if you get a full complement of your wide receiving core, you find supplements for Njoku. Maybe you see Jerome Ford run a couple extra routes.
Yeah, maybe. Although Tillman has already been. I thought I see. He's been ruled out for week 15.
Oh crap! See, this is what happens when I fly on Fridays. I miss all these injury reports. So, all right. So no Tillman. So you're stuck with Jerry Jeudy. That's not too bad. That dude's been on a tear. And Elijah Moore can break winless. I'm still not afraid of this.
Right.
Like Tillman helped. Right. He had the 2 big games that we really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, he's just been a guy. But Judy's cemented himself as the number one. JMO's going to pepper him with targets. I'm okay with this. I really am.
Yeah. And the other thing with that as well, right? Like JMO has been a QB1 4 of his last 6 starts. Like, and this Chiefs defense, the Chiefs pass defense for sure has not been as good as what the Broncos has been. So just kind of bring up that point that you mentioned earlier. So, yeah, it's JMO. Alrighty. And then Scott over on YouTube, full point PPR. Do you expect anything out of Lazard as a deep sleeper rest of the season now that Adams is there? Basically hoping that he might regain some of the early chemistry with Rodgers.
No.
Yeah.
I would be dropping Lazard like a bad habit, and then you just try and find. I'd rather have Quentin Johnston than Alan Lazard, right? And Quentin's on a ton of waiver wires this week. I'd rather have him.
Yeah. At this point, I don't know that there's enough to go around after Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams get theirs, right? Like, and we're relying on a Jets offense that have been bad all season. So I don't know that I want any other part of that one there. So no,
That experiment ran its course.
Yes, and it is already over. So I'm right there with you. No, I don't want any part of Alan Lazard, really, in any format. Yeah, even in a best ball, I don't know that I'd want that shot there, right? Like,
I mean, he's already there. You can't do anything about it in a best ball,
right? But that one there, you're hoping that he breaks an 80-yarder for a touchdown, which, like, that's
if you need upside, there's other places to look for upside.
Yes, Ekine out of Tennessee, like that's more of an upside shot.
Xavier Legette against Dallas,
right?
Valdez Scantling against Washington.
Yeah.
Von Vele for Denver against Indianapolis. Like those are guys I like their upside more. So now maybe it's a dynasty setup, right? Like I think that's kind of the thing that I keep coming back to, Derek, is if you're still having Lazard on your roster, it's good chance it's a dynasty setup. So
right.
Maybe some of those guys aren't quite out there. But I still think there's some different alternatives.
Yeah, I would agree. With that. Alrighty. Well, guys, any if you got any other questions, comments, concerns, let's go ahead and get those in the chat here. We'll give folks a few moments to try and post that out there. And then Kev saying that in the PPR league, would you go Higgins, Breesall, Braylon Allen, or Sincere McCormick? The opponent has Burrow. I don't know if Brees is actually playing, so that's
he practiced. He's still listed as questionable, but he did finally practice, so that's a good thing. I mean, it's definitely Higgins and Hall. If Hall's cleared,
right?
Like it is hands down that. Sincere, I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest lover of that, and quite frankly, at home, you could see him possibly do something. So maybe Sincere pick one for the flex. Oh, you're going Higgins. Picking one for the flex, I'm going Higgins. I could understand an argument for Hall if he was coming into that game fully healthy against the Jags. Like, and maybe I would really pay attention. If you feel good about it, you do kind of a late pivot. But again, the Bengals still think they have something to play for, and that makes them a bit more dangerous than what the Jets do. Like, I feel like the Jets are about 1 week away for just packing it all up. And I don't think the Jags will be that team to do it. But Mac Jones does understand the Jets, right? Being in New England. So maybe that helps him a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's Higgins for me as well, especially if your opponent has Burrow. I want to try and counteract that a little bit, right? And so, Higgins there, right? That yes, if Burrow is going on a tear, and you've got Higgins in there, you're at least scoring those points where they're going to Higgins there, right? Like, and it counteracts that a little bit. So I would also lean on the Higgins side of that as well. I could see if Brees Hall is fully cleared, ready to go, if you wanted to pivot that way, but I'd still lean the Higgins side of it. Kev saying that it was pick one for flex. Yep. Okay. And then Jordan over on YouTube, they are playing for 5th this week, so they're looking at the keepers for next season. Keep one vet and one rookie. Bo Nix with a 16th, Lad with the 10th, Tracy Jr. with the 10th, Tracy Jr. with a 16th, Ray Davis with the 16th, or Odunze with an 8th. It's almost got to be Nix with the 16th, I would think.
If it's a single quarterback, I think I'm taking.
If it's single, yes. Sorry. So yes, if it's super flex, I'm going Bo with the 16th. Single, I do like that call of Lad in the 10th. The vets, he says, are DK with the 4th, Najee with the 5th, Shakir with the 12th, Jennings with the 16th.
Shakir.
Yeah.
Like I think I'd take the value there. Shakir. DK, DK's having a down year. You could probably get DK in the 4th or 5th again next year. Najee's had a decent year. We don't know what his offseason is going to look like. If he goes and tests free agency, if he goes back to the Steelers, like if he's back with the Steelers, he's splitting time again. So as good as Najee's year's been, there's a lot of up and down kind of involved in that. So I think I'd go Khalil Shakir. And at the moment, he's been pretty consistent in the Buffalo passing game here when he's been healthy.
Yeah. I could see Buffalo going out and adding somebody either through free agency or another high draft pick there that could make me a little bit leery of Shakir there. I don't mind Najee in the 5th. Again, though, there's a whole lot in the air about Najee with the 5th round there. So I think you're right. I think it probably is Shakir. I don't want Jennings in the 16th, right? With what would appear to be a healthy Ayuk, healthy Debo, healthy CMC.
He'll be about that same spot next year during redrafts. We'll forget all about him, and then you'll be able to pick him up in that same spot if you want to stash him.
Right. And at that point, if I have to spend up on him with a 14th round pick, I'm not worried about losing 2 rounds in a late teen type of draft. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there as well. So it sounds like you and I are in alignment there. They did say it's a 1 QB league. So yeah, I would go the Lad route there. It says that they are losing Josh Allen as part of their keeper rules, and they were Lad and Shakir lets them go ham on running back early.
Yeah. Or you could potentially get Allen back, right? Like you have at least a couple solid wide receivers. I mean, you could grab Allen in the 2nd, 3rd turn, just like where he was going again this year, if that's what you wanted to do. But yeah, other than that, it allows you to play the running back game and then follow up. There's a lot of cool things about this that you could do in the draft. So I think that might be the play. Lad and Shakir, you need a stud like alpha receiver, but that's it. So if the rest of your league is going ham on wide receiver, then you start loading up on running back, right? And then you just create depth at wide receiver and go from there.
Yeah, because if you can pull off the, a Jefferson, Chase, Puka, Nico, Amon-Ra, CD type of deal there, right? To one of those early rounds, and then you just kind of let the draft fall to you that way. He's saying that Josh Allen of the 3rd is his hope. Yeah, like that would be a good call there as well, right? And you could go with a hero running back, pick up one of those alpha type of wide receivers. Pick up one of those alpha wide receivers in the 2nd round. You have to play around between the 1st and 2nd, just depending upon how drafts shake
right?
out.
Because he's going to be picking. If it's a 10 team, he's picking 5th, right?
Right.
If it's a 12 team, he's picking 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Yeah. So somewhere in it, you can get an alpha there because some of those running backs are going to disappear off the board.
Right. And you're going to have,
I like where you're set up there.
and he's going to have some of that where some of these guys are probably kept anyway. And all of that. And so,
Yeah, depending on how some of that works out, right?
So,
I mean, hell, your draft spot for next year is where people were playing with the idea of Saquon right before the season started.
or even playing with Jamar Chase at that point.
Yeah, because the contract holdout. Yeah.
Right. Like that's a really good spot to be in. So yeah, I like your options there and what you've got set up for sure. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, obviously things can change between now and June, July, August, whenever your draft is, but I think here or have to declare keepers, maybe that's part of it. But I think here to start with, we're all in agreement.
Okay. All right. Scott saying, what about Jeremy Nichols with Austin Eckler out? Not sure about Rodriguez getting more carries as well. Outside of Brian Robinson, I don't want much of that Washington backfield.
McNichols is interesting, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I want to play Russian roulette with the second fiddle in Washington. I'd agree with that.
Because it's just as likely that you see Jaden Daniels tuck it, run, take off there as well, instead of popping it out to a running back on a screen or check down. So, yeah. Kev was saying that thanks guys, that was exactly what I was thinking. Going back to that Higgins for the flex play there, and then Kev also chiming in on Jordan's question there, saying that Tracy in the 16th is good value.
It is good value. Nothing about the New York Giants excites me outside of Malik Neighbors.
Right.
So I'm very weary of keeping players attached to low performing offenses, regardless of the value.
Right. Well, and especially offenses that may go through a whole heap of changes here too, right? Like
new quarterback, possibly a new head coach.
Right. And
like,
even if
it means new offensive coordinator, which all sorts of things change. So as Tracy's good now, maybe the new coach comes in and they're more zone oriented up front, and that's not really Tracy's game. Like being a former wide receiver, see hole, hit hole. Like he wants to get in space, not necessarily read where the gap in the offensive line is.
Right. So, yeah, well, it's good value. It's one of those that I want to see what the offseason looks like as well. So, and hopefully, Jordan, that this is a league where it's one of those you got to declare the keepers closer to the draft than having to declare them right after the season's over. So, Jordan saying, thanks, guys. Appreciate your analysis. Absolutely. Appreciate you tuning in, Jordan. Scott over on YouTube saying that it's
this makes much more sense.
It sure does. It sure does.
So with that, right, 16 team league, I think I would rather have one of the Washington running backs over Allen Lazard.
Yeah.
So going back to the original question, right, about Lazard and what our thoughts are, I think I'd rather go McNichols over Lazard.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know that Rodriguez really, does much to challenge.
He's a splinter, right? Like you feel him when it hits, but he's not there until you pick it up.
And that's one of those I really don't want to have to try and guess the week, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yes, but being 16, McNichols.
So, alrighty. So some really good questions, guys. If you have any kind of final questions, let's go ahead and get those in. But while we're waiting to see if folks have any other final questions out there, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Final thought. We've gone 14 weeks of grinding to get to this point in the playoffs. So, assuming it sounds like everyone tuning in here at the moment is in. So congratulations. You are through the easy part. Now you need your team to take it home, right? Now you need a little bit more luck. You're kind of forced in and needing those big weeks. You can't just attrition through it. So, good luck to you. Congratulations on getting into the playoffs. You know, some leagues it's really stinking difficult to get in. Some maybe not so much, but there are some leagues where it is just a dogfight. So, you know, keep grinding. We're in the playoffs. Keep grinding. Please go over to YouTube, hit like and subscribe. We certainly appreciate that. And then you can also find us pretty much anywhere you consume your social media content at Good Old Boys FF. But we sure appreciate all of you.
Absolutely. And did see some new faces in the chat tonight. So again, love all the interaction, love all the questions coming in there. Be sure that you hit the follow button, like, subscribe, all of that, wherever you're consuming this content. Kind of one other thought out there. Nope. Mario did have a question come in. So let's go ahead and hit this one up before I sign us out here. But Mario asking, should I trust Khalil Shakir at flex, or should I risk it with Breece Hall? I did just see some notifications popping through while we were going through in the last 5-10 minutes that Breece Hall is expected to play this Sunday.
And with Breece Hall having that 11 a.m. game time, you'll know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a benefit, right? So you'll know right away if you need to pivot. So 90 minutes before game time is when the injury reports must be sent out. Now, active doesn't mean playing. We've seen that before from time to time, but it's very rare that it screws you over quite that much. But I guess I'd go Breece personally, but I'm a running back junkie. But I would lean Breece over Shakir. But if something changes on the injury designation, then I wouldn't feel bad about pivoting to Shakir at all. I think he's probably going to see a pretty decent sized target share against the Lions here this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree with that. At this point, I would feel better probably risking my fantasy playoffs on Breece Hall if he's healthy, if he's playing, depending upon what that injury report looks like, than the Khalil Shakir side of it. But if I had to pivot on that one, I don't feel bad about having to start Shakir in that one. So that's kind of where I would lean on that one as well. Brunson over on YouTube asking Baker or Jameis this week. So we went into this one pretty good as well with Rodgers and Stroud also in the mix, but we landed on the Jameis side this week.
Yes, cosign.
All righty. So it does look like that's kind of all the questions, comments that we have in there. So guys, remember at this point, if you win one this week, you win one the next week, and you win one the week after that, they call that a championship. And so it's a 3-game win streak that we're looking to put together here. And 3 games is 3-game win streak. It will bring home that cash, bring home that trophies. And that's what these next 3 weeks are about. So let's see what we can do and bring those home, and wishing the best of luck out there to everybody to go out there and get that done. But I do believe that's the end of the questions here. And that does look like that's going to do it for us tonight, unless there's anything else you want to hit up.
Nope, I'm good, buddy.
All righty. That's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.